Hey there and welcome back. Noah here. For those of you new to this series, I'm a recent architecture graduate and a new indie developer. You are looking at the first game I've ever created, and it has been a super fun and eye-opening experience trying to develop a video game. This is the second and last episode of the final platform Devlog series. It's a short series, I know, but this first game is almost complete and I'm really excited to jump onto the next project. My next game will be an open world pixel art game set in a cyberpunk universe. That game is the main reason why I wanted to start in indie development, since I'd get to create a completely unique world using all of my architectural experience. If you are curious in following that progress, please subscribe for future updates on that game. I've actually already started making some pixel art for that game since I couldn't wait, and I can begin showing that progress in the next video. For now, let me show you the final progress on my first game. Firstly, I've decided to opt out of the infinite procedurally generated level and add 2 additional levels to the game instead. And I've really had a lot of fun designing the levels and didn't want to get too caught up in procedural generation, which I think limits the originality of the level design and also takes a lot more time. After playing through the game a couple times, I realized the difficulty progression happens too quickly, so I decided to insert an easier level to bridge the difficulty gap. Instead of progressing from static platforms and directly into complex rotating platforms, this level introduces simpler obstacles that just move left and right so that players can get a little more practice. Here, you can see that the first stretch is straightforward and the jumping challenges get progressively harder once you reach the middle. I also want to incorporate multiple branching paths, with the more difficult pathways offering higher value coins. This is level 6. The concept for level 6 is resilience. There are a bunch of moving obstacles in the level that tries to knock you off the platform. You gotta be really scrappy to get through this level since you'll get knocked around quite a bit. For the first area, I scripted some moving blades that move towards the player, and it's important to get out of the way or else they knock you to the side. Sometimes you may get lucky and land on another platform, but it's more likely to get knocked off. I scripted the blades so that once they move past the player, they respawn at their original position. If the player moved close to the respawn point, then they no longer appear, since it would look like they were appearing out of nowhere, which wouldn't look very good. In the second area, you are moving on a platform with a lot of holes in it, and you have to dodge the spheres that are moving up and down. I personally had a lot of fun playing through this area since it feels somewhat similar to navigating through a bouncing inflatable castle. This area is quite difficult and will probably take several tries to beat. Here's a quick look at the rest of the level, which has a sort of fantasy-like atmosphere. I don't want to show absolutely everything, as I'd rather have the players discover it when they play the game. The 7th level is the final level before the boss, and I just want to make it extremely difficult and incorporate all of the hardest elements from the previous segments. Right at the beginning, there is a near impossible cube field section with hundreds of moving platforms. After playing around with this, I realized both the speed of the player and the camera angle made it unfair and pretty much impossible to beat. To fix this, I created a new power-up that slows down the player and also changes the camera angle so the platforms are easier to see. This made it a bit easier, and I was able to complete about 2/3 of this segment, although I still haven't been able to beat it. Here you can see if you fall off, the character resets, goes back to normal speed, and the camera rolls back to its original position. I thought that this gradual transition would feel a bit smoother to the player than compared to an abrupt camera jump. Finally, here's a quick look at another area of the level. So here's the final level in the game, which contains the boss battle. This boss took quite a while to script, but I'm almost done at this point. First, I wanted to keep the platforms relatively simple to not interfere with the boss. They are, however, fairly narrow, so the player still needs to focus on their balance as to not fall off. For the boss itself, it's made up of multiple pieces, all of which are rigid bodies. This means that the boss is 100% physics-based and can be defeated through collisions. This did make the scripting quite a bit more challenging, but overall made the boss more fun. I think it would be lame to reach the final level of a physics-based game only to face a non-physics-based boss. So the boss activates once the player passes an invisible collider, and the entire level revolves around battling this boss. I've scripted 3 different attacks for this boss, and I can show you its basic attack here. The gears detach from its main body and flies towards the player. Again, I don't want to reveal too much here, so I'll just briefly describe its mechanics. Once the player reaches about 1/3 of the level, the boss activates 2 more attacking mechanisms, giving more things for the player to dodge. Once the player reaches 2/3 of the way, the player receives an ability that allows you to fight back and defeat the boss. You must defeat the boss before the end of the level, else you would just fall off the edge and you would have to start the level over. Everything should be working properly at this point, but I personally haven't been able to beat the boss yet. If you ever played a Dark Souls game, I'd say that this boss is the equivalent of a harder Dark Souls boss. So basically, it's going to take you a lot of tries to get through this one. So overall, the game is mostly complete. I decided to add midway checkpoints in levels 2 through 7 since I think it would simply be too hard and probably wouldn't be very fun if you have to start all over from the beginning every time. I've decided I will be uploading the game to the Google Play Store, and the game will eventually use the tilt system in your phones for left and right movement. I think using a tilt system will make the game much more fun to play, especially since it's a physics-based game, but it could also increase the difficulty, so I may have to do a bit more work balancing the game for the new controls. So that's pretty much it for this game. I will be making some minor changes and improving the UI to work better with Android, and I hope to release the game sometime next week. Again, this will be the last devlog video on this first game. I'll be transitioning to 2D pixel art for that game, which will be a much larger project. A new devlog series will be created, so please stay tuned. I will also be releasing pixel art and architecture content in the future. If you are interested in seeing more, please subscribe to the channel. If you are curious about my past architectural work, my portfolio website link is below. Thanks for watching and see you next time. Bye!